Hey guys, it's Morgan Zegers with Educate Freedom, and today I'm going to walk you through how to teach your kids about the three main benefits of economic independence. Now, before we get started with the video, I just want to remind you of two things. Number one, this is going to be very introductory for your children, so consider the 3 points that we go over today to be categories that you should be touching on as you have these discussions with your kids. The second thing to remind you of is this is a video version of our actual full lesson plan that's available for free on our website. So if you want the full curriculum plan for lesson number 2, and if you want the parent guide, you want the printouts, the student work booklet, all that great stuff that we offer in the curriculum packet, go to educatefreedom.org. Again, it's free. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first benefit of economic independence that we're going to talk about today is the freedom of choice. Now, I recommend breaking this down into two ways. The first angle we can look at this from is our freedom to choose in terms of, as American citizens, choosing how we participate in the economy. Now, that has to do with what kind of job we want, in the sense that do we want to be an employee? Do we want to be somebody that starts our own business and we're a business owner ourselves? Or are we somebody that wants to work contract work and be self-employed? There are plenty of options in terms of the style of job that we have. The other angle to that is choosing what career field we go into. What education do we want to pursue? What jobs would we like to do? What career and industry would we like to work in? And of course, we can literally change that at any time. We have the freedom of choice in this because it's up to us. It's not up to the government, like in a socialist country where the government is basically the main boss and they tell everybody what to do. But we'll get into that later. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is going to be an increased quality of life. Now, I will warn you this, it is very hard to teach this lesson in a simple way because it just takes time and it's more qualitative. Yes, there is a ton of quantitative data, a ton of numbers, statistics, polls, historical proof showing that when you introduce power to the people and when you introduce economic independence in a society, the society thrives and people's quality of life improves. You see poverty go down, you see hunger go down, you see basic security improving as well. All these fundamental aspects of a thriving society, they start to appear once you introduce economic independence. But here's the thing, that's a really complicated lesson for people in America that grew up in this very comforting society. It's hard for us to wrap our heads around. So we have a few suggestions on how you can teach this in an effective way to your kids. It's really all about making it qualitative. So we have 3 recommendations on making this qualitative when you are teaching your kids this lesson about an increased quality of life. The first one is going to be exposing them to what it's like in other parts of the world, specifically in socialist and communist countries. Now, if you're unaware, when I first started this nonprofit that produces this curriculum and these lesson plans, our main projects were interviewing people who escaped socialism and communism. So if you look up our videos online, if you look up the Freedom Records, that's an entire show that we did featuring interviews with these people that lived and suffered and escaped these socialist and communist regimes. So watching their firsthand testimonies is very powerful and brings that qualitative lesson. And number 2 pretty much connects to number 1. Once you've exposed them to the fact that yes, there are hard times being experienced across the globe, and we are so blessed for the basic necessities that we have access to here in America, you can also start to express to them that you have gratitude, that you as a family should have gratitude for what you do have, what you are blessed with. So adding repetitive phrases of gratitude and showing how thankful you are for what you do have in this country, what you do have in your everyday life for your family, and what the child has growing up is very important. Be honest with them about what the world is really like and how blessed we are to have these basic necessities. The last one, number 3, I do recommend one website, humanprogress.org, that has some really fascinating stories and comparisons of how far we have come as humans, and they always connect to the fact that when you introduce economic independence in a society, you see improvements in the civilization. So I definitely recommend that. And let's move on to the last one, number 3, my personal favorite. Economic independence gives power to the people. Now, what do I mean by this? We can look at America as a good example. When we look at our federal government, we have multiple different branches that are all intended to provide checks and balances on each other. So in our federal government, we have the executive branch, we have the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. Another system of checks and balances that we have here is the fact that we are a republic rooted in federalism. We have the federal government that's created by the states, we have the state governments, we have local governments within those states, and then here's course, the often overlooked level of power and the secret check that I think is highly important but often overlooked, the power of the people to provide a check on all of those different levels above them. Now, this gets a little complicated, and we do talk more and more about these in future lessons, specifically about socialism, but a core lesson for why socialism is bad is that it takes away an individual, the citizen's ability to provide for themselves, to be self-sufficient, independent, and truly free. If you as a citizen are self-sufficient, can provide for yourself, and can survive, you don't need anybody, you aren't dependent on the government, that's really when you're the most empowered to provide a check on the government if they ever become tyrannical, if they ever try and pull any weird, concerning authoritarian actions. If you are able to defend yourself, provide for yourself, you don't need anybody, and you specifically don't need any help from the government, you're able to provide that check in the strongest way possible. You are most empowered. And like I said, we will get into this in the future, but socialism essentially puts the citizens of the country in a very compromising and dangerous position because they become fully dependent financially and economically on the government. And that is dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And before we ever get into those lessons, it's important to talk to our kids about respecting freedom, understanding economic independence, and appreciating these things before we get into why socialism is so bad, because socialism takes away all these freedoms. It takes away economic independence. That's why these lessons come first. So if you're ready for lesson 3, which is what is socialism, then definitely move on. But make sure that your kids love and respect freedom first, and then get into the bad guy stuff. You guys, thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. Like I've said before, we are here to serve you. We're here to make your experience of teaching your kid to love freedom and reject socialism as easy and simple and effective as possible. So if you haven't gotten our full curriculum packet yet, available at educatefreedom.org, I recommend you going to do that. Go to educatefreedom.org. It's a 5-lesson curriculum packet, fully put together to make your life easy and to make sure that your child loves freedom by the time they are a citizen out there in society. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.